and find out what some of the secrets of network TV are. Now, I only had room on the slide for 8. I'm sure that there's probably more than 8. But these are some, hopefully, that you guys will be able to think about and use in your own organizations. Good documentary-style storytelling has that wow factor. It's emotive content. It makes you feel something, makes you think about something differently. It's inspiring, perhaps, or it's maybe even can be surprising, or there's a shock factor to it. But whatever it is, there's definitely something that makes you sit up and think. Lead with the story, not with the brand. I used to do presentation skills training for a sales force in a company that I used to work for. And without fail, every single one of those sales associates would stand up with a presentation and would say, Company X is 33,000 people around the world. We have revenues of blah, 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 blah. And the audience is left sitting there thinking, okay, that's really nice for Company X. Why does that matter to me? Now, the brand, you want the brand to be part of the story, but you want to start the story with something that the audience says, oh, I want to hear more about that. So you want to start with that story. There's always a story arc in good storytelling, regardless of whether you're reading a book or you're watching television or perhaps at the movies. There's always a good story arc. A challenge. There's a challenge to overcome. There's a sense of urgency, a champion and a payoff. I'll give you just a quick example. One of the projects that EMC is very involved in is historic preservation. So we work with a number of organizations around the world to preserve and store their data and other assets. And you'll see a little bit more about that later. But one of the groups that we're working with is called the Finca Vigía Foundation, and they are preserving Ernest Hemingway's home and archives in Cuba. So we had the opportunity recently to go to Cuba. The challenge in that story is that in the tropical climate in Cuba, everything was deteriorating. It was disintegrating. They were going to lose it. The urgency was, it's happening now. You know, once it's gone, it's gone. The champions came in, formed a foundation, enlisted a U.S. congressman, enlisted the Kennedy Library and EMC, and now all of that material is being digitized and stored and put online. The payoff so that scholars, historians, and the general public can have access to it and learn more about the author and his work. Interesting human characters. People are compelled by other people. We really like learning something about someone interesting. So from Parker Leotoad, who is the youngest person ever to have been to the North Pole and the South Pole, walked to both of those places. We did a wonderful story on him on his training expedition for the South Pole. We went to Iceland with him and, trekking through the snow to do his training for the South Pole. To another character that you'll see coming up pretty soon, General John Custer, who is related to the original General Custer, and is now the EMC Director of Missions and Federal Missions and Programs for EMC. Fascinating person with a fascinating story. Let the interviewees tell the story in their own words. Now, there's a lot of different ways that you can do a video. You can do a voiceover video, which has a narration track and somebody telling you what the information is. But there's also a way in more of a documentary style that you let the interviews tell the story. So all of those little bits and pieces of that interview, you weave together. Let's say you have 4 interviews or 5 interviews in a 5-minute video. You weave those together. It's like putting a puzzle together so that they tell their own story in their own words. Go behind the scenes, somewhere that an audience wouldn't normally get to see. People are fascinated by that. Whether it's airplane parts manufacturing. We were able to go to Abu Dhabi to the Khalifa port. Now, most of you know, it's almost impossible to get a camera in a port or an airport these days. But the Khalifa port had transitioned all of their IT infrastructure onto EMC technology. And they were very excited about it, and they wanted to do the video. And so we went behind the scenes into this amazing port with, huge cranes and ships and, just very, very exciting for an audience to see that kind of thing. You don't get to see that often. And finally, location, 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 just like the Ohio Real Estate Convention that was down the hall. I'm sure they were talking about the same thing. What this really means is when you're thinking about the stories you want to tell, think about the visuals that you're going to see. Because a financial industry, a financial, organization or an insurance agency or something might not be as visually interesting as, one of our customers is Guess Europe. So we've been able to go to the fashion shows in Milan and do, this whole thing with Guess Europe. Fashion, retail, sustainable agriculture, manufacturing, as I said before. Really think about what is the audience going to see? Because we are human beings, and as human beings, what we see impacts us first. So visuals are really, really important.